The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
As a former New Hampshire state representative who marched with Dr. Martin Luther King in 1963, he currently serves on the New Hampshire Commission for Human Rights. He's a product of Birmingham, Alabama, where at one time he had to guess how many jelly beans were in a fruit jar just to be able to vote.
We've come a long way, but we're not there yet.
Together we will explore the visible laws, invisible laws, and the structures above and beneath our human surface that keep us reaching for the stars. It is his goal to work with you in putting Nashua back on top, to be voted the #1 city in the nation again.
We are in a crisis situation, and that's what we're going to talk about.
I'm Harvey Key. Welcome to Nashua Strong.
Hello, Nashua. My name is Harvey Key. I'm at the brand new station, renovated station of now Nashua Public Television. I got it right that time. Thank you so much for allowing us to come into your living room or wherever you may be and looking at channel 96. Any place you can get it, you'll see us on your TV right in your living room, and thank you for allowing us to visit with you. I want to thank you so much for what you've done with us before. This pandemic hit us, knocked us out of our boots in some cases, and some of us survived and some didn't, and we pray for those that did not. Now, I am always honored and jubilant to be in your presence, and I always try to bring something to you that is the foundation of Nashua, New Hampshire, because I love this city. I've loved this city for 50 years or more, and this city is one of the finest cities in this country. Last 20 or 30 years, this city has been in the top 10 of the best cities to raise a family. And one of those 4 times or 5 times, it was the #1 city in the country to raise a family. So I'm in love with the city. And I will always love this city. It's beautiful, the people are beautiful, and I'm so honored to be in your presence. Today, I have the expressed honor to interview my youngest daughter. And some people would say, this is not the right thing to do. Well, to me, it's the right thing to do because we talk about the foundation of Nashua. Foundation of Nashua is what we ride on today. This young lady is, I won't tell you her age, but when she was in the 6th grade at, I believe, Infant Jesus, she wrote a poem about time. And Jada, I know you don't remember that, or maybe you do, but you wrote a poem and it was published in the Nashua Telegraph. And as we get into this, I'm going to ask her, and I'm looking at her and say, yeah, Dad, I do remember, if she can tell us that poem when she was 6 years old or 7 years old. But I'm so honored to have my daughter, Jada, come and let Nashua know what it has produced as part of the foundation for our city and our state and for the world, frankly. So I'm so proud. And I want to tell you that Jada is my youngest daughter, and she's going to tell you a little bit about herself. But before we do that, I'm going to ask her a few questions of which I know the answer. I don't know if she knows the answer or not. But the first question, Jada, is where were you born? Maybe I should change that. Welcome, darling. Welcome, my daughter.
Thank you.
Tell me, where were you born?
Oh, where was I born? I was born in Akron, Ohio.
And how old were you when you had to move with your family to a new city and new state And exactly how many cities and states have your family moved to, if you can remember?
I'm not sure I'm going to get that one right. We would have to ask mom that because she would definitely have that accurate answer. But when we moved to Nashua, I was 9. I believe I was 8, maybe turning 9. It was the summer. And I believe we moved at least 8 times in a span of 12 years or so, and sometimes multiple times in one city. So, for example, in Nashua, we moved to Nashua, but we moved to several different parts of Nashua in my 3rd grade year. And I went to 3 different elementary schools in one year.
Three
So,
different elementary
yeah,
schools.
so I started out at Lead Street. No, I'm sorry. I started out at Sunset Heights and then Lead Street and then Holy Infant Jesus.
And is that where you wrote a poem?
Yeah, I think, but yeah, because 6th grade I was at St. Joe's.
Okay.
So, which is now I think St. Chris's. But I remember a lot of moves within cities, but moving from city to city, I think I was too young. But also moving from city to city was kind of fun because, we were with the family and it was kind of an adventure. Moving in between schools within the city was harder, I think. 'cause you
What
had
was
to
so
make new
difficult
friends.
about that?
Just being the new kid all the time
Yeah.
in the class, and the teacher, especially starting as a new kid in the middle of the school year and being introduced as a new kid, and friend groups were already formed, and you're worried about what you're wearing and are you wearing the right thing, and so yeah, it was tough, but people were very nice for the most part. I mean, I can't say
Can
that.
you, by any chance, remember part of the poem you wrote at Holy?
I
It was
don't.
about time.
I don't. I mean, I think I vaguely remember something about something like time, something to the effect of yesterday's gone. It's only today and tomorrow. I don't really remember.
But that's
Sorry.
right on target. And actually, yesterday is gone. And one of the
Yeah.
most difficult things we have to do as adults today is let go yesterday because we can't change it. That's
Yeah.
marvelous. And I thank you. Your mom and my wife have been trying to remember that and look through all of the stuff we've packed away to find it, and we haven't been able to find it. But you brought it right up. In those schools, Jada, did you participate in any extracurricular activities?
Yeah. Really loved the creative arts, so loved creative writing, loved any reading club. I remember the SRA books, the little pamphlets. I loved that. But also theater, musical theater, never a main character, but always kind of in the chorus, which I was fine, playing a postulant in what is that musical? With Julie Andrews and the children.
Yeah, it's Walking in the Rain. No.
No. Oh my God. Anyway, I'll come up with it. But so musical theater, cheerleading, definitely later at high school was into cheerleading. Never really got into team sports, but definitely, I mean, as it was then, a team sport with 2 nets and an offense and a defense. I liked cheerleading, dancing and things like that.
Were you the captain of the cheerleading school?
I was in Nashua High, but yeah, back in the day.
Yeah, back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you this, Jada.
The Sound of Music. The Sound
of Music. I was going to say that, but you beat me to it. I'll accept that.
The Sound of Music, yeah, being a postulant in The Sound of Music, or just someone in the background. I just loved singing and dancing and learning the steps and just being a part of that creative process. I loved it. So
let me ask you. Now, I'm the papa. You know that. I was gone a lot. And I never heard you complain about any complexities. Did you have any complexities in those movements of different schools for any reason?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think, as a kid, you just want to fit in.
Yeah.
The pure thing is so thick in middle school and certainly in high school. and those were formative years when we were moving and being new kids in schools. And so, being one of very few kids of color in predominantly white schools, you're different. Your family's different, that we looked different. We weren't the only different kids, but that was complex, and navigating that and trying to figure out, what do I have in common with these folks, and how do I react if somebody says something that isn't cool, or that's hurtful. So, and being young and trying to figure that out was complex for sure.
Let me ask you. I never heard you complain to me, because you know what I would have done, and you overcame it yourself, and with your sister, your brother, your mama, somebody, you overcame those hurdles. And did you embrace those differences in some way to overcome?
Sure. I mean, I think a lot of people helped, certainly the family, because other members of the family were going through that kind of transition as well. But there were amazing teachers. There were some amazing friends, families of friends or parents of friends. Our neighborhood, I have to say, like, I think our neighborhood, growing up on Radcliffe Drive,
Yeah.
Those were some of the best people I've ever met in my life on
Wow.
Radcliffe Drive and Wellesley. It was like a village. We were raised by the Palos and,
The Dyers.
forgetting the Dyers,
Yeah.
and, folks like that. They helped a lot.
Yeah.
Very welcoming, loving, supportive, and I always felt safe in our neighborhood and safe in our home. And I think that's a gift.
Yes.
Not all young people feel safe in their home or safe in their neighborhood, and that was a gift that you and Mom definitely gave us. And so, working through the complexities, certainly with family members, but with neighbors, and that neighborliness, I think, is so important, and keeping that alive today, I think, can really help us overcome some of the challenges that we face.
Where did you go to
but I
college?
digress. Where did I go to college?
Yeah.
I went to Vassar College.
How in the
Poughkeepsie, New
world
York.
did you discover Vassar?
Well, I was on a college trip with my older brother, Mark, and he was looking at Vassar, and I was young, and I was just along for the ride. We were doing college tours, and we were on the college tour at Vassar, and he didn't like Vassar. I think he was sort of like, meh. I fell in love with it. I thought, oh my God, like, this is where I want to go to school.
I understand you got lost on campus.
I did get lost on campus, and I ended up wandering into an all-girls dorm, strong house, and there was a piano in the parlor, and I didn't play piano, but I just thought, how cool. And lo and behold, my freshman year at Vassar, I lived in Strong House. So
How about
it
that?
was like full circle. Yeah, it was cool.
Now, can you tell your beloved Nashuans, because you love this city, I think you love it as much as I do, how is it that you can relate to some of the young boys and girls who are growing up in this city right now, how to overcome complexities and distances, how to embrace differences? What would you say to them? And if you would be nice enough to let us hear something from you.
Yeah. I mean, I think some of the challenges that young people in Nashua today are facing are really different than what I faced. And yet, at the same time, I feel like some behaviors are universal, and they transcend time. And if you kind of take these things to heart, you're gonna overcome whatever you might be facing. And so I would say number one is to break down the problem into consumable chunks. We look at problems and we see mountains, we see these huge problems, and we're like, I can't do this, it's too big. Break it down into parts. Like,
would you say start with self first?
Yeah. I mean,
if
sure.
if I could look at the mountain that I couldn't climb, and if I allow what I can't do stand in the way of what I can do, I'll never start climbing. So if I look at myself first, Would that be something that you would suggest?
I mean, I think that if you break your problem or your challenge or your barrier or your blocker down into the smallest parts, like and you can identify like what can I do today? What can I do right now? Then I think you will start with yourself. Like, what can I do? What can't I do? What do I have control over? What don't I have control over? And that will start helping you reflect on yourself and what you're capable of and what resources you have. But I think you got to chunk it out, break it down, and say, what can I do right now that's in my control? What's in my span of control? I always like to say, your area of influence is 3 feet wide. As wide as you can spread your arms. That's your radius of control. What can you do within that radius? And if you identify those things, once you conquer those, then your confidence builds. Then you're like, oh, I did that. Like,
And then
I
you could go
conquered
on
that.
and do something else.
And then your confidence gets bigger and bigger. Like, okay, now I think I can do the next thing and the next thing and the next thing.
Fantastic.
So I think, yeah, and I also think, know your limits. Take a break. Don't think that you can do everything at once all of the time, or that you're always going to be successful. It's a long game. I think life is a long game. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint.
Yeah.
So what you don't accomplish this week or this year, even maybe you'll accomplish it next year. I think it's really, really, really important to listen to the people around you who you trust. So, and that means younger people and older people. Younger people have such wisdom. We often talk about our elders, and you, Dad, as an elder, are filled with wisdom. And I think we must listen to our elders as we're trying to climb these mountains and, break it out into chunks. But we also have to listen to the people younger than us, because they have a wisdom that isn't the same, but they have fresh eyes and they have new perspectives and good ideas. And I think we too often dismiss young people. People make fun of Gen Zers or millennials or whatever, but I would say even younger. There's wisdom in the mouths of, elementary school kids.
Yeah.
So when you're trying to solve a problem, pull in some of your young siblings or young cousins, and they will give you a perspective that you didn't even imagine. So I think, break it down into chunks, take your time and listen. Listen to those above you and listen to those below you in terms of age.
That's great. Let me ask you, Jada, after you left Vassar, who inspired you? I won't ask you who. Let me ask you, what was your inspiration to go to Columbia for graduate school? Who and what was it that you say, I want to do that? Was there any particular person? They could be in this country, out of this country, wherever, or next door neighbor. It could be a child. You wanted to go to Columbia.
Yeah. I mean, there were a couple people. So do I have to name one? I can't just name one. I mean, first of all, I have to say,
no, don't name anybody but your dad. It's all right.
Well, I mean, is that what you were looking for? Well, I mean, of course, you have always been my inspiration. You've always been a role model to me. Like, every time I feel like I can't do something, I'm like, what would Dad say? What would Dad do? So you have always been my North Star, always.
Wow.
And my mom too, of course. We can't leave out Mom.
No.
In different ways. You inspire, each of you inspired me in different ways. You were the, dream, big. Mom was more practical. Like, okay, he's the dreamer. Now let's get down to brass tacks and how to get it done. So you, for sure. I think for Columbia, I've always loved to write. I still to this day love to write. But Liz Walker was the first Black anchor woman in WBZ, I believe. And she blew my socks off. I was like, Liz Walker, I want to be Liz Walker. She was, breaking news stories and doing investigative reporting, and she was just so cool. So she was a distant sort of like celebrity level inspiration. But at the end of the day, Mark, my brother, was the one who was like, because I was trying to decide where, I want to go to grad school. Where do I go? Thinking about law school, but talking it through with him, he's like, you don't want to go to law school. That's not you. You need to write. You need to follow your nose. You need to, you need to be a journalist. You should go for journalism school. So, you know, he was also hugely
Wow.
influential. Yeah.
And what was your greatest accomplishment in New York? I mean, I think you worked for some guy.
Yeah, no, I worked for ABC News, World News Tonight. Peter Jennings,
Peter
may he
Jennings.
rest in peace. He was great. Gosh, my greatest accomplishment?
Well, you got
That's
out of
hard.
school, one. That's accomplishment.
Yeah, I mean,
Did you love Columbia? Was it tough?
I did. It was tough, but
tough.
I loved it. And New York was our, our classroom. Like we
Yeah.
did stories. We were all over the city, just like doing stories, going to courthouses, we're looking at third shift and, all kinds of, investigative reporting for school. So it was a great classroom to be in New York City.
And
I
then
think my greatest accomplishment was surviving New York City.
you did a good job. Now, your first job out of Columbia, what was that?
My first job out of Columbia was an internship at ABC that turned into a job at ABC. So I left Columbia and went straight to ABC and was there for 3 years.
Okay, and then where did you go?
And then I left. So I think I have to say, this is probably not the answer you're looking for, but the greatest accomplishment in New York was, I think, deciding that journalism or television journalism was not something that I wanted to stay in. And really being true to myself and saying, this is not the career that I want. This is not the impact that I want to have on society, because I didn't feel like we were having an impact on society in television news. When we were at Columbia, it was very clear, what was drilled into us at Columbia was the litmus test for the degree to which your democracy is free is the degree to which your press is free. And so I've always linked, freedom of the press with democracy, and advancing a healthy democracy and advancing civic engagement was really my call. And we weren't doing that at ABC. I mean, ABC was great, but we weren't having the social impact that I really wanted to have. So when I was there, we did tons of education stories. I worked on World News Tonight had a feature segment called American Agenda, and one of the beats was education. And so I worked on the education beat a lot with the anchor Bill Blakemore.
Yes.
And so he did a lot of education stories, and I doing those stories and working on other stories as well. But I saw hope and like impact in education. I thought, whoa, these stories, these people are really making a difference. Teachers, certain school districts, certain initiatives that were being put in place. And I thought, if you want to have an impact on society, you really have to go to education, go to where young people are being taught and being nurtured to be citizens. I mean, education in this, that's the key to democracy. That's the key to freedom, I think. So I left ABC and got into education.
And where did you go from ABC?
So I went to St. Paul's School, and I started at St. Paul's in the admissions office, but ended up after 25 years at St. Paul's, I had done many different jobs. So I was, the director of admissions, the director of college counseling. I was a humanities teacher. I was a softball coach. I was, and ended up, when I left, being the vice rector,
You're saying the vice rector of the school? Let me ask you this, Jada. Are you the first female vice rector of St. Paul's School?
No, I was not. No.
But there was another female who preceded you.
Yeah, I think Sharon Hennessy was before me, but there was another one. Sorry, there's some honking in my background. That's loud.
But
no, so I was not the first. No.
Okay, I didn't want to give you that credit when you didn't do it. But now they have a rector who's a female. Is that progress?
She's the first.
She's the first rector.
She's the first female head of school at St. Paul's. Yes.
And What was your greatest accomplishment at St. Paul's School after 25 years? I know that's a tough question. I guess maybe let me ask you this way. Do you think you had an impact on young folks' thinking, and not what they thought, but how they thought at St. Paul's?
For sure. I was going to say, I think the greatest impact was, or the greatest accomplishment was the effects, both short term and long term, that I was able to have on students and their families, frankly. St. Paul's is 100% boarding. Students live there year round. And, having those students in our home when they were away from home, feeding them, when they had their hearts broken, being there to listen to them, really helping to raise these young people in such formative years.
Yeah.
And then hearing, like, even after they graduated, they would come back and they would say, that time when you did X, Y, Z, and you didn't even remember because you think it was just such a small thing, but for a kid, it was huge. I think that will go down as my greatest accomplishment, being able to touch the lives of young people in a positive way.
That's fantastic, and thank you so much for that, because I think we're the beneficiaries of a young group of people in New Hampshire who's growing up with the tentacles to embrace differences. And I think you laid that out pretty well. Now you left St. Paul's and went over to this school called SNU. What attracted you to SNU?
So Southern New Hampshire University, after 25 years in the high school space, the private boarding 9-12 space, thinking about higher ed, which is a completely different animal. But I really wanted to do diversity, equity, and inclusion work full time. And there was an opportunity. They were hiring a chief diversity and inclusion officer, their first one. And I went for it and I applied, and lo and behold, I got
there
the
you
job.
are.
And so kind of touching people's lives, and not necessarily young people, but at the moment, SNHU has about 165,000 learners that we serve, and they are adult learners, they are traditional age learners, all different kinds of people who are just trying to get their bachelor's degree. And the mission of SNHU is to, reach people who would never have dreamed of having a bachelor's degree, who would have never dreamed of going to college, and saying, no, you can, and we'll help you. And it's such an inspiring mission that I was so drawn to it. And it's just incredible work. And, the lives that we touch, it blows me away every day. Yeah.
Who in your scope of thinking, right now, you're talking to a huge number of young people who come through the portals of SNU. What is the mission of SNU?
Yeah, I mean, the mission, in the little soundbite is to transform lives at scale.
Say that again.
To transform lives at scale. So, by opening up pathways and opening access to higher education to as many people as we possibly can, we hope to transform their lives at scale, which means,
no limits.
Many hundreds of thousands of people, not 1,000, 2,000, 10,000, but 300,000.
Which means you're touching lives, and there's no end to that. It's a continuation, and it's continually expanding. Let me ask you this, Jada. In our moves, we moved 8 or 9 times in a short period, while you were growing up, and you resolved and got over some humps and some bridges and pierced some ceilings. Do you think that kind of got into your circulatory, your respiratory system, to carry out and impact other people so they could do basically the same thing. So we become a better human being. And we keep evolving and keep evolving. And there's no end to that. It never, ever ends. That's like love. Love never, there's no end game. And what you're doing, in my opinion, is carrying out that kind of impact, the mission of SNU, to just help us help ourselves to be better human beings. Is that, I don't know if that is basically what you would say, but I have to listen to you because you're my daughter.
Yeah, no, I think that's just right. I think when I reflect on my life and when I reflect on growing up in Nashua, if it weren't for very specific people along the way, and all it takes is one person, all it takes is one person to say, you know what, you can do it. I believe in you. I have confidence in you. Despite the obstacles, you can soar. You can get through the hard times. You can get through the obstacles. I've had the privilege of a very strong support network, but even outside of the family, there were people, like I said, there were teachers, there were parents of friends of mine, there were friends of mine who were the scaffolding every step of the way. And so that has inspired me and has taught me to be that for other people in my life, and to make sure that in my workplace, but certainly in my work at SNHU, in helping open up access to more choices and more access to education for more people. That's what I carry forward, because that was done for me.
Let me ask you this. There was one person you used to quote, and I almost quote, Winston Churchill said something about giving up, and you mentioned that. Never give up, never.
Oh yeah, I think Winston Churchill's the one who said never, 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 never give up. Like he said it multiple times. I think that was him.
And he turned the whole battleship around. And the British people beat their enemy's pants off. So let me just, I know you're busy and I don't want to keep you too long, but I want to tell you how much I appreciate you, and I ask you one question. Yeah. Well, I've asked you a lot of questions. Of all of those places you lived, what's the best place you lived? Did you like best?
Well, I'd have to say Radcliffe Drive.
Radcliffe Drive in Nashua, New Hampshire?
19 Radcliffe Drive. You mean of all the places in my life or in my childhood?
No, in childhood, growing up.
Oh, I would say, hands down, 19 Radcliffe Drive.
Nashua, New Hampshire. You heard what she said. It's Nashua, New Hampshire. Jada, my love, I'm going to have to shut this down. I want to thank you so much for your intuition, your wisdom, your blatant, extraordinary femme fatale, whatever that is. I love you. Thank you so much. And we'll see you again. And thank you for your accomplishment, and I love you so much. Have a great day. And Nashua, please listen to the words of this young lady, the wisdom that says, embrace differences, jump over hurdles, pierce some ceilings, and don't be afraid and never give up. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time. Thank you, Jada. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Dad. Have a good one. I'll see you soon.
Thank you.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.